Hey folks, Heather and I are back for another edition of Cape Ann Today's Week in Review. We had a pretty amazing week, Heather.
We did. There was a lot of news, a lot of really good interviews.
And you're calling this the Week of the Surge.
Well, I think Governor Baker is calling it the Week of the Surge, actually. So it was declared that. And the numbers were supposed to really sort of escalate. This is when hospitals were really going to be feeling the pressure. And it feels as if this is Thursday that we're getting through. And according to Karen Carroll, the Gloucester Director of Public Health, the hospitals are holding steady, at least around here. And I know my husband's at North Shore Medical Center, formerly Salem Hospital, and they're doing okay.
So let's, rewind and go back to the beginning of the week in case folks missed our interviews during the week. So, first off, we started with your husband, cardiologist, Dr. David Raven.
Right. So he had just finished 2 shifts in the ICU at North Shore Medical Center, and he came out of those shifts, his first 2 shifts there, so impressed with the staff. You can listen to the interview, but he said these nurses and this support staff are amazing. They are in with these patients, holding their hands, talking to them. That we talked about that special team that wear the red hats that are in charge of turning over the ventilated patients. And this is my favorite part of that story. Whenever a ventilated patient in the ICU is taken off the ventilator, they play Vivaldi over the hospital. So everybody knows over the whole hospital that someone has made it.
Well, I have to tell the folks at the Innovation House about that over the next week. I really am. So then we also spoke with Taylor Bradford, as we always do with the Gloucester Daily Times. She spoke about, I think the latest tally is we had 104 confirmed cases in Gloucester. And then a few other things she touched upon was the continuation of public commenting for Mados Field and the consolidation of the East Gloucester Elementary and Veterans Memorial Elementary schools. And then she also talked about the proposed rescheduling of St. Peter's Fiesta for sometime this fall.
Right. That's such an important date in this city, and really for the whole community. And to have it be rescheduled is a little bit heartbreaking, but it's also kind of nice to know that there is a date out there, but everyone admits it will not be the same. It will probably be more of a religious and fishing event again. That's what I'm.
Yeah, like it began. It's amazing how things are sort of spinning back to how, to its origins. So we touch base with Taylor a couple times a week and other time staff as well, which we'll get to in a bit. You had a great talk with Anne-Marie Luster. She was the Dean of Students at Rockport High School.
Yeah, so they've been, like so many schools around here, having remote learning for about a month now. So we just talked to Anne-Marie Luster. She's a Dean of Students, as you said, about how that's going. And she said that kids, sorry, my cat always climbs in on this, this segment. She said that the kids actually are looking for structure and they kind of like it. So that's good to hear, right?
Yeah, and there's more on this in a bit because now with school being canceled, the school year essentially, we know children aren't returning to the buildings. They need that structure, and that and a whole bunch of problems arise from remote learning and how that's going to be dealt with moving forward. Not to mention things like field trips and prom and graduation, et cetera, but more on that in a bit. We had a great conversation this week with Jim Destino. He's the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Gloucester, talking about all the budgetary concerns and how they're navigating through this pandemic as well.
Yes, it's a long interview, but please listen. He talks about the fact that the City of Gloucester was doing very well economically when we went into this. So, he sees them as a strong city, and he sees other cities looking to Gloucester for leadership, watching how they're managing the pandemic.
It's been a common theme from a lot of these interviews we've been doing is just because of the type of community we are here on Cape Ann, how close-knit we are, how unified we seem to be throughout all this is really helping us flatten the curve. So keep it up. And Jim gets really detailed with some of the budgetary concerns as well, so stay tuned for that. You can find all these videos at 1623 Studios on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and many of these now appear on the Gloucester Daily Times online section as well. You had another great talk with a psychiatric nurse practitioner, Anita Ruckman.
I did, yes. And all I'm going to say, I'm going to leave the quote she left me with, okay? The quote is, "We are not all in the same boat. We are all in the same storm, but we are in many different boats navigating this storm." And I think that's really a important thing to recognize. So listen to Anita's interview. She's a psychiatric nurse practitioner. She talks about, it gets very sort of poignant, and she leaves the interview with a blessing. So people should listen. It's a nice, quiet moment.
And then sadly, things got tragic as the week turned on with the loss of a local fisherman off the Miss Sandy earlier. We spoke with Sean Horgan of the Gloucester Daily Times about that in depth. And like you said eloquently, it's just another layer of loss for the Gloucester fishing community.
Right. It's such a hard time anyway. And then we have this. So
yeah.
It was and Sean laid out that story beautifully.
Yeah. So please check that out as well. And then I believe it was later on that day, we found out that schools, in fact, were going to be canceled. And then so we immediately spoke with Superintendents Rob Lebo of Rockport and Richard Safier of Gloucester, sort of like the A to Z on how they plan on dealing with this new news. And they had very differing opinions on how to work through high school graduation this year. Whereas Rockport, they're really determined to have some sort of gathering where social distancing will be practiced. Whereas Gloucester, which has a much larger student body, doesn't seem as though they want to touch that with a feather.
Right. No, Dr. Sapphire, he was very concerned about the implications of coming together in a large gathering. And he said, "I just don't want to be responsible for anybody getting sick." And I heard that. So, and Rockport's such a smaller town, it's possible to perhaps do that safely. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to say 75 or so graduating seniors this year. So hopefully we'll see, how creative people can get and make that day and time special for those students. So we also, Heather, had a great conversation with Gloucester Police Chief Ed Conley.
Yes, we did. He's a great guy. He really is. And he talked about he had a beautiful line talking about how the morale in the Gloucester police force is very high. He pointed out that they recognized their role in this important time in human history. He said, "We see that we are on the front lines of this unprecedented moment, and it's our job to keep people safe." So he's a moving person. He's moving in a thoughtful way. He's smart. He's sensitive. He's a really impressive man, and it's a great interview.
And he also has a great answer for your question about whether more people are speeding nowadays since there's less traffic on the road. So people, you can check that out. And also off camera, we didn't get this in, but we want to say what Chief Conley said was that he felt like, a lot of people are donating food and time or whatever to help encourage and support the police department and the fire department and first responders. And he felt like it was people working in grocery stores could use some boost in appreciation as well. So we actually started a little conversation about how we can maybe help those folks out down the line. But it was really cool to hear that too.
Yeah, coming from the chief of police, saying that those people are the courageous ones working in these grocery stores. And did they ask to do this? Did they volunteer to be on these front lines? So that was a really sensitive conversation.
Mm-hmm. We had another great chat with Karen Carroll, who is a regular now on Cape Today. She's the Director of Public Health for the City of Gloucester, and she discussed the surge and gave us real numbers in real time of what they're dealing with. The one cool thing that I took out of that was how she feels like the health service providers and the hospital are doing nicely at this point and staying above water and managing things well.
Yes, and I had not realized actually that on Cape Ann, anyone who is COVID positive goes to Beverly Hospital, and people who are COVID negative but may have health issues go to Addison Gilbert. So I did not realize that they were making that distinction. So that was interesting.
Yep, great conversation there. We also had a very short but timely and important conversation with Jen Schmorrow of Action Inc. Action has been doing so much for the community right now. And so what they have done is extended their fuel assistance program until the end of May. So that gives folks an extra month to apply for fuel assistance. And that helps with everything from, I think, help with utility bills to,
National Grid.
yeah, actually, if you do that through National Grid, but it can be anything too, appliances, repairs around the apartment. Like, you'd be surprised at how much that actually covers. So you can find out more information about that at actioninc.org. We also spoke, as we usually do, with Town Administrator of Manchester by the Sea, Greg Fetterspiel.
Yeah, and he just gave us updates. They had their selectmen's meeting the night before. The selectmen, we understand, are really taking very seriously the idea of providing some sort of relief for the businesses in the town of Manchester. There's already a renters relief program that the town is creating through the Community Preservation Act funds and through Action Inc. And that's for residents who are suffering to receive relief with their rent. But perhaps the town of Manchester can provide some sort of relief for local businesses. So that was an important thing he told us about.
And then that was reinforced by Erika Brown, the publisher and editor of the Manchester Cricket, who touched upon those themes as well. And so I guess, Manchester and Essex are both sort of surveying the landscape now to see how they might be able to support local businesses. And I guess it's already been done in some neighboring communities. I want to say Beverly Farms and Pride's Crossing's done some, through the Hastings House did something like this.
Right.
Almost the same way Action set up the Cape Ann Relief Fund.
Right. I think the one in Beverly Farms is through private, just a private neighborhood got together. But Erika really emphasized how it's the communities, the local communities coming out to support each other. They're really showing up, and it tightens the communities, it strengthens the communities, and it's good to see that, people helping people in our local communities.
Yeah, and then in financial news, there was some great news this week, finally, for the small businesses and sole proprietors, et cetera, about, one, getting stimulus checks, and then all these SBA loans that we've talked about ad nauseum recently. And it seems that some people are starting to get the relief there through these EIDL and PPP loans or grants, whatever that you may call them. So we had a great chat with her. Justine's been on top of this, and you can actually follow her Facebook page or business page, Justine Laurie CPA, and she goes into great detail about how all of this works, who qualifies for what, recommends what you should do to help fit your needs. So that was a great chat as well.
Yeah. And then we just had such a lively, uplifting, I shouldn't say uplifting because it's not great news for the Cape Ann Symphony, but we just talked to the conductor of the Cape Ann Symphony, Yoichi Udagawa, and the president, Fran White. So you tell us about this interview, Kory.
Well, so the symphony had to cancel their season. And we talked with the stage company last week. No one really knows when that arts community that plays to large audiences and gatherings will be able to perform again for folks. So it was a great chat about how they're adjusting, and they may start feathering out individual musicians' performances through their social media outlets in the meantime. And there's also ways for those musicians to get financial relief to stay afloat, because for many of them, that's their only source of income. And they don't have full-time gigs. So Yoichi talked about that for a little bit. And we also found out that Fran White, the president of the symphony, used to own a microbiology company, or
yeah.
They do testing. So we're going to follow up with her,
because she just recently sold it, I think in January, but now that company is working super hard to develop testing for COVID-19.
Yeah.
So she is incredibly busy, and Yoichi is very busy practicing the violin.
Yeah. So if you don't know Yoichi, what a great guy. Lots of laughter in that video. It's a long one, but it's a fun one. So we hope you guys get to check that too, as you will all the videos that we've done. Like I said, on 1623 Studios Facebook page, you can just click the videos tab, and they go on forever. Heather and I have done, I think, about 120 of these, no joke, in the last month. You can also go to our YouTube channel if that's your flavor. And in the meantime, we'll keep doing our best to chase these stories and spin and relay and spin this information to you as it becomes available. And if you can think of folks you'd like us to talk to, just drop us a line right here in the comments section. So again, Heather, another great week. It's been fun working with you.
Same with you, Kory, as ever.
And have a great weekend, folks. And we will see you we'll do this all over again starting next Monday.
Be well.